All right, joining us to discuss the start of the G20 Agriculture Working Group meeting in Durban is Simone Engelbrecht. She's Trade and Relations Officer at Agri-SA. Good evening, Simone. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. So, of course, this leg of the G20 meeting comes against a backdrop of ongoing geopolitical tensions. As we know, global trade is facing serious headwinds, which many would say speaks to the need to crystallize the priorities at the G20 Working Group to respond to the current climate. We heard, of course, that some of the priorities include the promotion of policies and investments that drive inclusive market participation towards improved food and nutrition security. Your views on just this priority?
Good evening, Mufendu, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. Very rightly so, we echo the words of Minister Steenhuisen that we also believe that South Africa has a very relevant and constructive role to play in its current role as the G20 chair this year. And with regards to your point to policies and investments for inclusive market access as a key G20 theme, we really want to emphasize that agriculture requires investment and in fact from climate to land rights, market access, women involvement, specifically with regards to the trade policies you mentioned, markets lie at the heart of development. And so well-functioning markets are critical to improve livelihoods. Mm-hmm. So the core goal is the improvement in global food security.
Now, you touch on women. That is another priority, just the empowering of youth and women in agri-food systems. But just take us through your views on how this can be realized to ensure that they're empowered in this specific sector.
Thank you, Mfundu. Yes, so gender disparities and youth involvement remain a major issue across all nations. And we do see and hope that it would continue, that the G20 really shines a light on this, nudging countries, to make an improvement on this. And for us, it is critical to activate the youth to be involved in agriculture for the future.
Mm-hmm. Now, we understand that AGOA will not form part of the discussions at this meeting purely because not all the countries attending are beneficiaries under that specific trade agreement. But the minister did touch in the briefing on at least their intention to present or to put together some sort of a proposal before the United States around these tariffs. Just your take on what some sort of a proposal or deal that our government should put forward to the United States should look like.
Yes, thank you, Mfundu. So I would not go into technical details since the discussions are still ongoing at this moment pertaining to specifically, the AGOA and trade-related matters. But what I can say is that, global trade is essential for all countries, and we need a collaborative approach for all to win, and with the end goal of achieving food security for all, as I've mentioned earlier. So I would leave it at that in terms of, specific trade agreements for now, but happy to share more once these discussions have been concluded.
Mm-hmm. But they seem to be more positive that if anything, they'll try to fight the 30% tariff that, of course, now is held in abeyance for the next 90 days for countries to negotiate. They're saying at worst, they're hoping to ensure that we keep the 10% baseline. Would that work for your sector?
Yes, and I do think that, what's also critical for South Africa is to also diversify our thinking towards other opportunity or low-hanging fruits that exist as markets in the globe. So yes-ish for now.
Mm-hmm. Simone, I love that you already touched about the need to diversify, because government is said to be exploring alternative markets for your agricultural exports to counter that impact of those tariffs. Many have said that this, in as much as it's a very volatile time, but also there are great opportunities here to explore those alternative markets. But when we look at government, it's essentially a facilitator, but you are essentially industry that would inform them of the alternatives that exist. Have you started to identify the alternative markets for your sector?
Thank you, Mfundu. Yes, we do work very closely with the government and industry stakeholders across the agriculture value chain to ensure that agriculture is profitable and sustainable. And so with regards to your question in terms of alternative markets, yes, the Southeast Asian area or the network of nations is quite critical for South Africa, to consider as markets, whether it be, to broaden the already existing market access or to gain market access for South African products not yet present in these countries.
Now, just in closing, for those that still say that global trade is facing these very serious headwinds, as a sector in South Africa, we've spoken to a number of your representatives since this story around the tariffs, but many of them have been quite upbeat. Can you just give us a formal or solid response? Are you in any way panicking as a sector right now?
Not at all are we panicking, Fundo. Without a doubt, that change or the shift in geopolitical activities do have an effect, and different industries or sub-industries in the agriculture sector and also other economic sectors are experiencing a shift. But not at all are we worried. Mentioning my previous point with regard to our markets and utilizing what we have at hand.
Simone, thank you very much for your time. That was Simone Engelbrecht. She's Trade and Relations Officer at Agri-SA, just talking to us at the start of the G20 Agricultural Working Group meeting taking place in Durban. And we do apologize for that choppy line.